days, in fact over the last week, many South Australian families, indeed people around Australia and more broadly who have learned of the situation that happened at Renmark High School on the 22nd of March have been appalled and concerned and indeed made very anxious about what would be the circumstances if they as parents were confronted to hear, as unfortunately a number of parents at Renmark High School did, their children come home and have described to them a presentation ostensibly on respectful relationships and consent, where instead the presenter apparently, allegedly, raised concepts of incest and bestiality. Concepts which, as the Minister for Education rightly said in the question time just passed, were utterly inappropriate for the session, as indeed was this presentation. The member for Chafee, Tim Whetstone, during question time set out the scene very clearly, with a range of concerns of failures that have led to this situation. The first being that when the session which was to be held was prepared, parents were not notified. Now again, the Minister has confirmed that this is not in accordance with departmental procedure. This departmental procedure is very important. It is set in place so that when parents have views about the content of curriculum, in particular in relation to sensitive topics such as sexual education, respectful relationships, consent education, that they have the opportunity to deny their consent. Not every parent in South Australia, and indeed I'd suggest the vast majority of parents in South Australia do not necessarily want their children to be denied the opportunity to have professionally delivered sex education, consent education, respectful relationships education. But indeed it is absolutely right that parents be given the opportunity to make it their decision whether their child takes place in that. The school has apologised for their failure to follow procedure and protocol on this occasion, and that is also right. But it is important that we get to the bottom of how this happened so that we can ensure that it doesn't happen again. A second key issue here, and again as acknowledged by the Minister and the Chief Executive of the Department, is that the Department's processes and procedures in relation to duty of care do not appear to have been followed. Whatever the legal status, certainly the Department's procedures would expect that when a third-party provider is presenting a session of this, or indeed any other nature, the school retains a duty of care to its students. There should have been an adult in the room, a teacher in the room, somebody responsible for the well-being of those students who could have indeed put a stop to the session as it was going on once it was very clear that the content was inappropriate. And that did not happen, and we look forward to the conclusion of the investigation that the Minister has indicated the Department is putting forward, so that we can understand why this happened, how this happened, and how we can ensure it does not happen again. There's a number of questions that were answered during question time. There are several that we look forward to the answer. We look forward to the process, which will hopefully see a copy of this presentation released so that we can assess more clearly what is included in it. However, from what has been provided and indeed acknowledged by the government, it was utterly inappropriate. But there are many more questions in relation to how this was able to happen and what the department's response will be. I'm grateful to the Minister for his indication of early and quick responses as soon as that happens, and he understands, I'm certain, that the community and the South Australian public will hold him to those assurances, as they will the government. The Minister raised in question time also that the government is proposing to have an approved provider list, and there are a couple of questions relating to the detail about that. It is important, it is certainly the Liberal Party's strong view that following the Renmark High School incident, it is necessary to conduct this review, this audit, if you like, of the programs that are available, so that principals, school leaders around South Australia, if they are to be engaging with third-party providers, can do so that they have confidence in the content and the material being provided being fit for purpose and suitable for engagement with minors in a school context. We do understand the critical importance of issues raised by Chanel Contos, for example, and the thousands of young Australian women who gave their testimony as to the importance of consent and sex education given the sexual assault experiences that they had received in their accusations of the department some 3 or 4 years ago, not just our department in South Australia, but around Australia, that insufficient information had been provided. That's why the Morrison government responded with an urgency to ensure that the national curriculum did have an appropriate level of resource in it. But the provision of that consent education must be by people who are delivering content that is appropriate, that is age appropriate, and that does not transcend the boundaries of what is reasonable for South Australian and Australian students. And I look forward to seeing the further work on this approved provider list, and hopefully this work will be important in reassuring parents that their concerns have been taken seriously.